Hello everybody and welcome back to another Oscar prediction video where today I will be taking a look at the category of Best Director. Now, it's interesting that I'm doing this category so early, but I think I have a habit of doing that if you look at my previous years of covering the Oscars. And it's crazy because even in the years where Best Picture is a little bit up in the air, Director is usually a little bit easier to call, especially in more recent years. And it's crazy because this year, Picture seems to have a pretty strong frontrunner, but there's room for an upset, and people are watching out for an upset. But Director, people seem to agree pretty much on who's winning Director. There doesn't seem to be a lot of confusion in the Director category. So that's why I think that the Director nominees are really great this year. But I do want to take a moment to say I think it's absolutely insane that Dune managed to get 10 nominations, 8 below the line categories, every below the line it possibly could have gotten, and still misses Director. I'm not quite sure how that happens because I would not have the movie in my top 5 for Picture, but I definitely would have it in Director because the scope of it is just undeniable. So, shout out for Denis Villeneuve, and hopefully he gets his nomination 2 years from now with Dune Part 2. Although I would caution people against predicting Dune Part 2 to sweep the Oscars because it's 2 years from now. We have no idea what other movies are coming out. Also, I do want to shout out to Johas Furman for Flea, which was great, and Frank Kranz for Mass, which was great, and Lin-Manuel Miranda for Tick Tick Boom. A lot of great directorial achievements this year, but we're only going to be discussing 5 of them. So without any further ado, let us get started. 5th most likely to win is Paul Thomas Anderson for Licorice Pizza. So, according to IMDb, Paul Thomas Anderson has been nominated for Oscars 11 times. However, that is taking into account picture, screenplay, and directing. And if you just look at directing, this is his 3rd nomination. But still, he is a very, very well-respected director and writer and producer. He's a very respected filmmaker. And film Twitter loves him even more than the Oscars do. Film Twitter goes crazy every time a Paul Thomas Anderson movie comes out. Now, I just want to say this on the record. Paul Thomas Anderson just doesn't click for me, and I know that's bad to say. I think he's a very talented director, and he gets great performances out of his actors, but his writing just doesn't mesh well with me, and I don't know what it is. So I didn't dislike Licorice Pizza, but it's not a film I am very high on. However, I fully respect anyone who does really like this film, and I get what Paul Thomas Anderson is going for. It just wasn't my kind of movie. And in terms of him winning director for this, I think he's going to hit a bit of a snag because the movie's only nominated for 3 Oscars. Even though a lot of fans on film Twitter say this is one of the favorite movies of the year, the big strike against it is that it only got those 3, picture, director, and screenplay, all for Paul Thomas Anderson, so that shows you that they like him. But if the movie's going to win anywhere, it's going to win screenplay. I think if the Academy really, really liked this movie, there was places for it to overperform. It could have gotten in for actress or supporting actor for Bradley Cooper, or for editing, or for costume design even. It only got 3. And what that tells me is that even though people like this movie, the Academy just likes it enough to give it the top 3 picture, director, screenplay. And I know that Paul Thomas Anderson does not yet have an Oscar, even though he's been nominated a bunch of times, but that fuels the conversation for the film to win screenplay, not so much director. Plus, the directing itself, while I do admire the work, it is very basic. It's not something that really calls a lot of attention to itself. So my gut tells me that this type of direction would not win unless the film was in a much better position to actually win Best Picture, which it is not. I think Paul Thomas Anderson has a very good chance to win screenplay, but picture and director, I feel, are not happening. Plus, he's more known as a writer than a director, I think, in general. That's more what he's admired for, even though that's not what I personally admire him for. But good on you for getting this nomination. I'm fairly confident that he is not going to win. Fourth most likely to win is Ryosuke Hamaguchi for Drive My Car, and I sincerely apologize if I did not pronounce that right. But the funny thing about Hamaguchi is that even before we were predicting Drive My Car to get into picture, which I know a lot of people still were not before it happened, a lot of people were predicting him to get in, because the Academy has sort of had a habit the past couple of years of nominating international directors even if their movies aren't in Best Picture. And we've seen it with Paweł Pawlikowski for Cold War, and we've seen it for Thomas Vinterberg for Another Round. So early in the year, we were sort of looking at, okay, what's the international feature director slot? And so people were already looking at, what was it? People were looking at Oscar Verhadi for A Hero. They were looking at Paolo Sorrentino for Hand of God. They were looking at, who directed Titan? Julia Ducournau. They were all getting attention even if the movies weren't in picture, because the Academy just likes to do that now. And I don't know why. I think it's because of the branching, the new Academy voters, the new, younger, more international Academy voters that want to reward different types of movies. And this year we saw a lot of international features get recognition, not just Drive My Car, but also Worst Person in the World in Screenplay and Parallel Mothers in Actress and Score. And of course Drive My Car got this director nomination, but also got in for Screenplay and Picture of the Year, on top of its nomination for International Feature, which it's definitely going to win. So that tells me that this movie has a lot of support behind it, and that's why I have him on over PTA. However, he kind of has the same problem that PTA does, which is the movie is not flashy in the way it's directed. I think there's a lot of... It's very well done, and there's some intriguing choices that are made, like the fact that we don't get the opening titles until 40 minutes in, but that might be more of a screenplay thing than a directing thing. Again, good performances, and the cinematography is nice, but it's not incredibly flashy, oh my god, look at this, notice this direction, the way you would see with something like Bong Joon-ho for Parasite or Alfonso Cuarón for Roma. Like, the direction in this film does stand out, is very impressive. Wait, what did I just say? I'm so sorry, by the way. I just came back from getting a blood test, and I've lost quite a bit of blood, so I'm a little bit lightheaded. I apologize if some of the things I'm saying don't make a lot of sense, but I just said it's not flashy, and it's not. I think I just want to say the direction in this movie is good. I apologize. I'm probably not going to re-edit this, because this is my second time talking about this. I'm re-editing this a lot. The simple fact of the matter is, I don't think Hamaguchi is going to win, because the movie, even though it did technically overperform, I don't think it's coming close to winning Best Picture, and I think the direction itself is pretty subdued and not the sort of thing that stands out. So, congratulations Hamaguchi on getting this nomination, but I don't see a win here. But still, congrats on getting the nomination. It's his first nomination. He's the only director here who's up here for their first time. So, congratulations to Hamaguchi for the nomination. But this really is one of those cases where the nomination itself is the reward. Third most likely to win is Kenneth Branagh for Belfast. So, this is Kenneth Branagh's 8th nomination, I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. And he holds the distinction of being, I think, the individual with the most nominations in as many unique categories as possible. Over the course of his career, he has literally been nominated for Best Picture, Best Director twice, Best Lead Actor, Best Supporting Actor, Best Original Screenplay, Best Adapted Screenplay, and weirdly enough, Best Live Action Short. So, that's very prolific, and it's strange that for all of that, he's never actually won an Oscar in any of those categories. But this is his second nomination Best Director, and he's certainly in the hunt, I think, more than PTA and Hamaguchi are. The movie was, at one point in time, considered the frontrunner to win Best Picture, and Branagh's direction, I think, is much more flashy and showy than the previous two I talked about. The fact that it's in black and white, the fact that certain things are in color, the fact that it's shown from a child's point of view, and the fact that we see certain moments done, that we see the call back to cinema and all this talk about love for cinema. This does feel like a recognizable effort in Best Director. The problem is the film has lost the momentum that it once had. The fact that it underperformed on nomination day, it didn't get editing, it didn't get cinematography, and it didn't get supporting actress for Katrina Balfe. All those things it was expected to get going in. It was thought to be a sure thing. I mean, it's a black and white movie that's up for Best Picture. If they nominated Nebraska, surely they'd nominate Belfast, but they didn't. And the editing nomination is critical. And again, the other thing that it missed is SAG Ensemble. People thought for sure that it would win that, but it did not. And I don't know, it just kind of feels like people don't really care about this one. I don't know, I think it needs to have a strong win somewhere, but I don't know. It's, again, even though it's noticeable work, I don't think it's the most noticeable of the stuff in this category. I think the top two are much more decisive in the way they're directing. Maybe I shouldn't say much more, but Branagh's work is flashier than the two below it, I'll give it that, and the movie is in the Best Picture conversation. I certainly would not rank him any lower than third, but I do think third is where he belongs. I do think, even though the story is a personal place for him, and though there is a narrative there, I just feel like not many people are talking about Branagh and his achievement. Not many people are wanting to give an Oscar for this. Not many guilds and critics awards have awarded Branagh. So I feel like while this is strong work for him, much like PTA, I think he and PTA are going to be duking it out in the screenplay for their Oscars. But I don't think that he's going to win director for this. Second most likely to win is Steven Spielberg for West Side Story. So if you look at Steven Spielberg's Best Director nominations, this is actually his 7th nomination to date, which is a little bit surprising, but he's gotten in for a picture a few more times for movies that didn't get in for director. And his career is absolutely legendary. He's the first director, I believe, to be nominated in 6 different decades, which is crazy, from the 70s all the way to the 2020s. And he has an insane career, and I want the best for him. I think he's a great director, even when he doesn't make the best movies. And recently, he's sort of in an interesting realm with Ready Player One and the BFG, which was not that great. But the man certainly has talent. An understatement of the year. He has talent, even at his age. And this is his first musical, and it's a little bit surprising because given the sort of things Spielberg has done, it does make sense that he would be good at directing a musical. And he directs this musical like he's been doing them all his life. And even in a year that provides us with a lot of really great musicals and Dear Evan Hansen, we did see, this was sort of the one that stood out. We saw a very, very good direction here. I personally would have had Lin-Manuel on here too for Tick, Tick, Boom, but I understand that what Steven Spielberg did is really impressive work. The reason I think it could win is because of the bottom 4 that's now the frontrunner. West Side Story is the movie that could come the closest to upsetting in Best Picture. I think the movie just came out on Disney+, which means more people are seeing it, and a lot of people are really taking notice of how clever the directorial effort is. I still don't think the movie is winning Best Picture. I think even though people really like the film, the big knock against it is the fact that West Side Story, the 1961 movie, already won. And like, when you gave it to West Side Story 60 years ago, why do we need to give it to West Side Story today? And there still is a lot of back and forth about, oh, it it's a worthy follow-up, it's a worthy movie. Um, but the thing is, even though what Spielberg did is great, he he already has an Oscar. He's actually the only person in this group that has won an Academy Award. He's won 2 Best Director Oscars and a Picture Award and an honorary Oscar before those. So he's already been rewarded, and that's not to say he can never win a third. I think it's very possible that he can win a third, but I think this year it's gonna be tough. I think this is the one that stands the best chance of upsetting in Best Director, but I'm fairly confident that the person who is number 1 most likely to win is Jane Campion for The Power of the Dog. Okay. So, Jane Campion holds the distinction of being the first woman to receive multiple nominations in the Best Director category. And her work on The Power of the Dog speaks for itself. It's pretty extraordinary. And even if you don't want to vote for it in picture, I think it's kind of hard to deny in Best Director. There's so much specificity to it. And it's interesting that she would be the 3rd woman to win this category, and the 2nd was just last year with Chloe Zhao. And for being a female director, she's making a film that's largely about masculinity and specifically toxic masculinity. And I think this script I think would not ring as true with a male director, or even if it did, I could see a movie like this. I could see the script being done by a male director and it still being good, but there's something about what Jane brings to it and what she brings to all the characters, all the members of this ensemble, and the overall look and feel of the world of the film. I think this is definitely a worthy win. This is who I would vote for in this category. And Jane Campion really does give it her all. And she has already won the Golden Globe, and she has won a lot. Not just the Globe, but so many Critics Awards. I'm not going to pull up the exact number, but I feel like every time there's a Critic Award, she wins Best Director. She is the person who's won the most, and if anything, the person who's won the 2nd most amount of director awards behind Jane Campion is Denis Villeneuve, who's not nominated this year. So Jane Campion has the goodwill to pull this off. Plus, her movie is currently the frontrunner to win Best Picture. It has the most nominations. It's been nominated for everything it possibly could have gotten in for, sans costume design, and it just makes so much sense. This is the movie everybody loves, even if it doesn't win Best Picture in the end, even if something upsets it. Because the only things that seem close to upset it, quite frankly at this point, are King Richard and Coda. And we can get to Best Picture later, but those 2 movies are not up for Best Director. And yes, West Side Story is the film that's kind of becoming a runner-up. If of the films that are in director, West Side Story is the only one that I think could pose a real challenge. However, what I think is so fascinating is that Chloe Zhao, first woman in history to receive more than 1 Best Director nomination, her previous nomination was 28 years ago for The Piano, and that was the year of Schindler's List, where she lost to Steven Spielberg. And now, in a twist of fate, she's nominated in the same category as Steven Spielberg, and I think there's a general feeling of it's her time. I think the narrative of having her beat Steven Spielberg this time, even though Spielberg's win for Schindler's List is really hard to argue with, I think there is just something about that narrative of seeing her win, and I bet Steven Spielberg would be the first one to applaud. She's certainly a great director who has really proven herself, not just with this and The Piano, but with a lot of other films over the course of her career, and it just kind of makes sense. This is her win. And also, it would be back-to-back women directors winning. It's just something that it's hard to argue with. I can't really find any flaw with the logic of Chloe Zhao winning, even if there is an upset in picture. I don't really see any way she loses director unless West Side Story goes hard. And if it does, then Spielberg is going to come off looking bad. But the fact that West Side Story didn't get in for editing or screenplay, I just feel like there's much more support behind Power of the Dog and behind Jane Campion specifically. So that is my prediction. I think Jane Campion is going to win this. And tune in tomorrow where I will be taking a look at the category of Best Live Action Short Film. Thank you for watching, and I will see you then.